2 goals, 1 assist here, a block shot there, and no marks in the playoffs. It doesn't sound like much, and it isn't, but that's exactly where Scott Laughton's story with the Toronto Maple Leafs begins. A story that, for many fans, was born under a cloud of doubt. After all, who trades a first-round pick and a promising young player for someone with those numbers? The answer is more complicated than it seems. And maybe that's what makes it so fascinating. The Leafs are known for making bets. The fan base knows this well. And they carry the scars of trades that once seemed promising, but ended up becoming reminders of what could have been. When Laughton's name hit the headlines on trade deadline day, the initial reaction was a mix of surprise and skepticism. Yes, he was born in Toronto. Yes, he's a physical, reliable player, known for his defensive skills and for anchoring a solid third line. But 2 goals? None in the playoffs? Was that really worth everything they gave up? In hindsight, it's easy to fall into shallow criticism. But understanding what really motivated this trade requires looking beyond the surface. But first, a quick pause. If you're a Leafs fan or someone who follows NHL trade rumors with that feeling that any move can change an entire season, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. Here, you don't just see what happens, you understand why it happens. The trade involved Nikita Grabenkin, a developing young prospect, and a conditional 2027 first-round pick protected within the top 10 if the Leafs don't collapse in the coming years, and that's the expectation. That pick should land in the bottom 8 of the first round. Despite still playing at a high level, the Leafs also received a 4th and a 6th-round pick, while the Flyers retained 50% of Laughton's salary, bringing his cap hit down to $1.5 million for the upcoming season. From a cap space perspective, it was a smart move, but from a performance standpoint, the judgment came fast. In his first 10 games with the Leafs, Laughton looked completely out of place. It took until his 10th game to score his first goal. The second didn't come until the end of the season, in an overtime win. By then, the criticism was ready. They traded a first-rounder for 2 goals? But that critique ignores a factor that is just as psychological as it is tactical. Laughton spent 11 years in the Flyers organization. It was all he knew. Being traded in the middle of a season, when teams are already running at full speed and the pressure to perform is enormous, isn't just hard, it's brutal. Especially when the destination is the Toronto Maple Leafs, one of the most unforgiving markets in the NHL, where every mistake becomes a headline and every game becomes a trial. Despite a slow offensive start, Craig Berube, the new head coach, began to trust Laughton as a shutdown presence. He eventually formed a third line with Steven Lawrence and Kaye Jarnkrok, which became a kind of safety valve for the team, stepping in during key moments to neutralize the opponent's top threats. In the playoffs, that line showed almost no offensive output, 0 goals between the 3 of them, but provided defensive value. And that was evident in Game 6 against the Senators, when Laughton blocked a shot in the final seconds that allowed Nylander to score on the empty net and seal the series. But that kind of contribution rarely makes headlines. And maybe that's why the narrative around Laughton remains so divisive. From a statistical standpoint, his profile is nearly a roller coaster. Defensively, he was among the league's best in expected goals against, showing that his presence really did help keep the puck away from the net. But in puck possession and offensive production, the numbers were harsh, very harsh. He finished the regular season with the lowest expected goals rate among all Leafs forwards, at just 36.46% over the final 20 games. On the other hand, before the trade with the Flyers, that stat was almost the exact opposite. He ranked as the team's second-best forward in expected goals with 53.88%. That supports the theory that the issue isn't the player, it's the adaptation. And adaptation takes time. The 2024-25 season ended with more questions than answers for Laughton, but that could change quickly. With a full summer to prepare, a complete training camp under Berube, and the chance to have set line mates from day one, it's reasonable to expect a more balanced performance. If he can hit 15 to 18 goals, put up 35 or 40 points, and maintain his physical, defensively responsible game, the weight of the trade and the criticism might finally start to fade. At its core, Laughton's arrival says less about the player himself and more about the state of the Leafs. A team still searching for balance, depth, and players who can make a difference even when they don't show up on the score sheet. A team that needs more than stars. It needs dependable workhorses. Time will tell if Laughton is one of them. But now I want to hear from you. Was the trade worth it? Or was it just another front office misstep the Leafs will be paying for years to come? Let me know in the comments what you thought of Laughton's first season with the Leafs. But perhaps the real turning point is just beginning. While fans are still digesting the impact of potential trade for Scott Laughton, a new proposal is starting to circulate behind the scenes and could permanently reshape the identity of the Maple Leafs roster. It's not about a first-line star or a jersey seller. It's about a player who, through the irony of fate, might perfectly symbolize what Brad Treliving has demanded, a real shift in DNA. The proposal came from a fan using the Puck GM tool on Puckpedia. But this wasn't just any simulation. It was a deal that gained traction because, surprisingly, it made a lot of sense. In it, the Toronto Maple Leafs would reacquire Mason Marchment, currently with the Dallas Stars, in exchange for Nick Robertson, Kaye Jarnkrok, a third-round pick in 2025 and a fifth-rounder in 2026. A package that might seem hefty to some. But in the current context, it emerges as a strategic gamble with deep emotional and tactical implications. To understand the weight of this proposal, you have to go back to 2020, when the Leafs traded Mason Marchment to the Florida Panthers for Denis Malgin. Few took notice. Malgin was smaller, more technical, faster, a piece that, in theory, fit a team still trying to find its identity. And Marchment? Tall, physical, rough around the edges. An undrafted player who had only played 4 NHL games for Toronto. He seemed expendable. Or so they thought. But time is harsh on those who underestimate character. In Florida, Marchment exploded. In 2 seasons, he scored 20 goals and added 37 assists in just 87 games. Despite still playing a valuable, disruptive player, represents a short-term loved by teammates, hated by opponents. In 2022, he was rewarded with a 4-year, $18 million contract from the Stars. And now, after another productive campaign with 22 goals and 47 points in only 62 games, his name is surfacing again from the very team that once let him go. It's not just ironic. It's a warning. Toronto needs players like Marchment, not just because of his size, 6 feet 4 inches of physical presence, but because of his grit, his edge, and his ability to make an impact even when the stats don't shine. In a league where playoff series are won in the battle for every inch, players like him make the difference. Exactly what was missing against Ottawa. Exactly the kind of player Brad Treliving described when he said this team needs a change in DNA. But this trade, if it happens, would come at a cost. Nick Robertson, a promising young forward still trying to establish himself in the NHL, would be a significant departure. Still, the fit in Dallas could revitalize his career, especially playing alongside his brother, Jason Robertson. Together, they could form a natural duo with chemistry and added motivation. It's a shift that, while painful for Toronto, could benefit all sides. Jarnkrok, on the other hand, is in a different situation. With 1 year left on his contract and a string of injuries that limited his impact last season, he's a likely buyout candidate. Trading him would clear cap space and refresh the bottom 6, while giving the Stars a versatile veteran who can still contribute on a 3rd or 4th line. And that's the point. This potential trade isn't about names. It's about intent. If the Laughton deal hinted at a search for identity, Marchment would be the embodiment of that new spirit. Imagine a 3rd line featuring Marchment, Laughton, and Lawrence. A physical, gritty, hard-to-play-against trio with the energy for a full 7-game series. They won't score all the goals, but they're the kind of line that tilts the ice. That shifts momentum. That forces opponents to adapt. There's symbolism here, too. Bringing Marchment back would be a quiet redemption for the Leafs front office, a silent apology for one of the most frustrating trades of the past decade, and at the same time, a clear message to the locker room. The mistakes of the past will not be repeated. Brad Treliving's postseason comments weren't just rhetoric. When he said there's a DNA that needs to change, he pointed to something beyond talent, because talent is something the Leafs have never lacked. Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares. But talent alone has never been enough, especially in Toronto. What's missing, and what might finally be addressed with moves like this, is a more aggressive collective spirit. Less hesitation, more bite. A team that can push back when the ice gets hot. That knows how to suffer, and knows how to hit back. In that sense, Marchment is more than a player. He's a symbol. What's remarkable is that this all started not from a verified report, but from a fan-made simulation. But this is the new NHL. In an era where fans have access to analytics, projections, and trade simulators, the best ideas sometimes come from outside the GM's office. And the fact this proposal went viral is itself a sign of how well Leafs Nation understands the team's moment. Leafs fans aren't asking for a flashy offense anymore. They want consistency. They want soul. They want players who know what it means to fail and come back to fix it. Toronto will undoubtedly be one of the most closely watched teams this offseason. Not just because of decisions around Matthews, Nylander, and Marner, but because of the secondary moves that could reshape the team's entire attitude. Because what's at stake now isn't talent, it's character. And if Marchment really does return, it will feel like a full circle moment. The piece once discarded comes back as the key to transformation, a ghost from the past that might become the pillar of the future. But the question remains, will this move actually happen? Or will it be just another brilliant idea lost in speculation and hesitation? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications, because this offseason is shaping up to be one of the most defining in recent memory. And we'll be right here to cover every chapter, step by step. Because when the Toronto Maple Leafs decide to change, it's not just a team that transforms. It's an entire city that dares to believe again.